number of specific issues in this election cycle. Which one do you feel is the most important for you to address, and how would you go about acting on that issue?
I think that the number one issue that I see out there is probably the issue with the employees. I think they're somewhat unhappy at this point, and I know that they want to be heard, and I'm hearing them very loud and clear. And I do listen. I do reach out to people. Even if I disagree with them on an issue, I will reach out to people and listen to their point of view. And I think that's an issue that I have to look at. However, I think for all of the public, the citizens of Douglas County, I think the infrastructure, roads, water, sewer, all of those things, we don't have the money to repair them at this point, and we need to start looking at setting up reserves in order to make sure those things are taken care of when the time comes. Thank you.
And Mr. Gertige, the same question. We have touched on a number of specific issues this election cycle. Which one do you feel is the most important for you to address, and how would you go about acting on that issue?
Well, there's quite a range of issues going on. Some of what Dave just touched on is of course, the infrastructure in this county. I think it's important that we do work on improving our infrastructure in this county. I think the county is working towards that right now. Of course, the gas tax has been implemented since February, and that's going to bring some revenue to help fix the roads. Whenever you have industry coming into a county, or you're trying to encourage industry to come into the county, obviously they're going to look at what kind of infrastructure there is in place and see if it's going to suit their needs. And obviously that's something that we need to work on in order to bring industry that pays good jobs and brings people to our community that will spend money in other businesses and help sustain our economy.
And the same question for Mr. Walsh. We've touched on a number of specific issues this election cycle. Which one do you feel is the most important for you to address, and how would you go about acting on that issue?
I think the biggest issue in Douglas County is providing quality water to every resident of Douglas County. 20, 25 years ago, we had development agreements with various developers, and they built their own water systems, and many of them have failed. The county is required under NRS to take those systems over. And we've consolidated a lot of those districts, at least down here in the valley. We've consolidated them administratively, but I think the big issue is to not consolidate them, but at least connect them physically, so that everybody in the county, if there's an issue, for example, up at Joe's Peak, and we have consolidated physically underground, if there's an issue up there at Joe's Peak, then they turn a water valve on down at, say, Rocky Terrace in Centerville, and at least Joe's Peak folks have potable water to drink. And they'll have to pay for it, but I think that's a huge issue that we need to work on. I'm not saying do away with the GIDs, I'm just saying consolidate, connect physically all the systems here in Douglas County. Thank you.
And finally, the same question for Mr. Lynn. We've touched on a number of specific issues in this election cycle. Which one do you feel is the most important for you to address, and how would you go about acting on that issue?
Well, let's see. We got quite a few issues in this smorgasbord. Which one is the one I would pick off the table? It seems, unfortunately, that a lot of the narrative in this particular election cycle has been focused around taxes, and I think that that's not an issue. I mean, the taxation that we as a board, since I've been on it, has been minimal. The current issue in my mind right now, I feel that we are on the way to having perfected the mechanism to take care of our road problem. So the next big issue in my mind is going to be stormwater control. And I think you have to distinguish between stormwater management and flood control. They're two completely different things. But the issue that has surfaced not exactly out of the blue is going to be stormwater control, and it's not a localized problem. It's a county-wide problem. You've got Foothill, TRE, Fishbridge, Johnson Lane. That's where we're going to need to go next.